Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call the Tuesday, February 10th, 2015 Committee of the Whole meeting to order. It's approximately 5:38 p.m. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Fairclough? Here. Councilwoman Waldman? Here. Councilman Burgess?
Here.
Councilman Maldonado? Absent. Councilman Williams? Absent. Vice Mayor Shelley?
Here.
Mayor Porter?
Here.
Thank you.
Any additions, deletions, deferrals?
Tab 7 is off, I understand? Yes.
Tab 7? Okay, so tab 7 is off.
We should have a motion, Mr. Mayor, to remove that.
Is there a motion to remove tab 7 from the agenda? Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Tab 1, Committee of the Whole minutes. Is there a motion? Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Tab 2, Mr. Attorney, Mr.
Mayor, Councilwoman Waldman respectfully requests Mayor and Council consider adopting the attached resolution urging Florida Legislature to apportion 10% of the funding dedicated to Land Acquisition Trust Fund pursuant to the Florida Water and Land Conservation Initiative, Florida Constitutional Amendment 1, to Greenway and Trail projects, including but not limited to the Western Greenbelt and the Biscayne Everglades Greenway projects.
Ms. Waldman, would you like to say something?
You know, we've talked about this before. The Greenway project is very important to our city, to our county, to our country, and I would appreciate the support of my colleagues on this tonight. I think we've talked about it so much, everybody's pretty familiar with it.
Is there a motion on tab 2?
Move it.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Tab 3.
Mayor, Vice Mayor Stephen Shelley respectfully requests Mayor and Council consider adopting the attached resolution to co-sponsor the Sir Lancelot Jones Day bill issued by State Senator Dwight Bullard and State Representative Holly Rashine. This bill is to create a perpetual Sir Lancelot Jones Day in the state of Florida.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, we've discussed this as well many times. You had the presentation from the resolution that was passed last year. This is to make it perpetual every year from here on out. And also, I'd like to say that the Mayor's Youth Council has also joined forces with us now to help lobby and advocate for this at the Tallahassee level. So it's a very exciting thing. It's a good teaching experience for the youth. So I ask for your support.
Any questions from council? Ms. Fairclough?
Yes. I'd just like to commend Vice Mayor Shelley for working on this. He's really taken on this project and galvanized a lot of support from various constituency groups. The Mayor's Youth Council and myself were really excited about moving forward with this. They've written their letters already, and we'll funnel those letters through Heather to get up to Tallahassee. But beyond the Youth Council, we're working on getting it in our schools and getting our students excited about it. So great job, Vice Mayor Shelley, and I look forward to working with you on this project moving forward.
Thank you.
I'll move it, Mayor.
Is there a second? Any final comments? All in favor? Motion carries. Tab 4.
Mayor, Vice Mayor Stephen Shelley and Councilwoman Judy Waldman individually and collectively request the Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution encouraging the Board of Miami-Dade County Commissioners to adopt a plan of action to address sea level rise.
Any questions from council? Any comments from the two sponsors? Vice Mayor?
Just to lay the groundwork, I know that it's just encouraging Miami-Dade County to essentially be forward-thinking, put together an action plan, before the consequences are faced, and it's just asking them to be proactive and take into account the task force recommendations.
Is there a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Final comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Tab 5.
Mayor, this item is for the purchase of various equipment from the CIP plan. Staff recommends Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution authorizing the City Manager to purchase 9 vehicles for the Police Department. And then also to purchase equipment for the IT Services Division and for the General Services Department. That includes 1 network server from Dell Computer Corporation, The annual lease payment for this equipment will be $94,919.82 over 5 years, which will be financed under SunTrust Master Lease Purchase Agreement as per the city's normal practice. The annual payments for 2015 will be $47,459.91, with quarterly payments to SunTrust starting in May 2015.
Questions from council? Is there a motion?
Move it.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Final comments, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Tab 6.
Mayor We Care of South Dade is requesting the mayor and council authorize the city manager to waive usage fees in the amount of $500 for the use of FICO Williams Community Center every Thursday of each month from March 2015 through December 2015 to host their training networking. According to the city's code, Chapter 20, Section 20-11, Fees and Charges, City Council sets fees and has the right to waive park and recreational fees by a majority vote.
Questions from council?
Yes. I have
Ms. Fairclough?
For clarification purposes, in the car, it reads that the request is every Thursday, but I'm not sure that they're wanting it every Thursday, because when I read the letter that Kamitra Driver sent, it said, I believe, the first Thursday of the month. So we need to clarify that it's not every Thursday.
That's
It's
right,
the first
Councilwoman
Thursday.
Fairclough. I was going to bring that up if there was
Okay.
red. It's first Thursday of each month.
Right. And Kamitra is here if there are any additional
That's the
questions.
clarification, and she is here today to speak.
Anything else? Vice Mayor?
Yeah, maybe she could come up and explain a little bit about the, I guess, the purpose of the meeting. And this goes back to, again, I know we've had a lot of discussion about fee waivers and policies and procedures. And originally, it was the concept was that we were going to extend this until we put a policy together. But I know that my understanding is now that we're kind of putting on hold the idea of creating a global policy on fee waivers as far as rules and regulations. So I'd like to learn a little more about, I guess, the purpose, because in my mind, I've always envisioned that if we're going to waive fees, it should be for the public good, so to speak, as an open public forum, or as it be a public event. And so I just want to hear a little bit more about it so I can kind of see if I can fit it in my own box and justify it, or whether how I can deal with it. So.
The meeting is a public event. It's open to the public, I should put it that way. It is our monthly meeting where providers that are serving South Dade community, Homestead, Florida City, and that we come together for the dual purpose of receiving training so that we can better provide services to our residents, then also for networking. A lot of partnerships are formed at that meeting so that we can better maximize the resources that we have in our community and not duplicate so many services. So that's the purpose of the meeting. We do open it up and invite residents, and we have had residents attend those meetings. Last month, we actually took the meeting mobile, and that's what we're doing every quarter, where we went to West Homestead K through 8 Center, and where we reached out to the parents. We had over 50 parents at that meeting. So we're looking at doing that, engaging parents more, residents more at the meeting, as well as the providers.
And what type of services do the providers provide? What are their...
Oh, across the gamut.
Okay.
You name it, they provide it. It could be housing, it could be emergency utility assistance, it could be after-school programming, healthcare. We have representatives from government officials. Commissioner Moss's office is always there, as well as Commissioner Levine Cava. We have business representatives. So it's not just the nonprofit community, and those that are from the nonprofit, they represent all types of social services. We
Okay.
average attendance about 40 individuals representing different agencies throughout, and they don't just come from South Dade. Actually, we have some that come all the way from downtown Miami to come and participate in this meeting.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Ms. Fairclough, did you?
She answered.
She answered, okay. Mr. Williams?
This is in regards to the fee waivers. I guess my question will be, where is the board or the council, where do we stand now with these requests for these fee waivers? Did you all ever put into perspective what we've talked about, or what are we doing?
The last
The last time you discussed this, there was sort of no consensus on which way to go, and we just sort of left it. That's my recollection.
And that is where?
Which is, they come to the council the way they've always come, and you have the authority to vote them up or vote them down. And, because there was no consensus on any kind of a structure or timetable, and felt like it got very complicated, but there was no consensus at all.
And that was my understanding as well, and so that's why we're just going to continue to bring them forward, and you'll decide one by one.
Okay, thank you. And based on, and I heard some of my colleagues mention before, you pointed out, Councilman Shelley, you said the intent for public use. How does one justify public use of it? What is the definition of such? I mean, how do we justify that? I'm not dealing with we care, but just
in general, I think that I would use the term public purpose. I think that's what you're talking about. Public purpose is going to be determined by the council. The council's going to decision on this is going to be given great weight, and it would have to be certainly the council would be necessary to justify that this is a public purpose. This is a good program for the community. It's a good thing. It's a good promotional event, but there's very broad definitions of public purpose. But it's the council's determination. It's a legislative act, and that once they make that determination, somebody could challenge it, but very obscure cases that are ever successful.
okay. Thank you.
Ms. Waldman?
Yes, I was just going to say that the Parks and Recs Department has done a study across the county as to what cities charge, what cities, what their policies are. And we've found that most cities and most municipalities, they do charge a fee to everybody. And they have a nominal fee for a nonprofit, but everybody has a fee, that there are no exceptions. The last time we discussed it, we just couldn't come to an agreement as to what people wanted to do, because some nonprofits have requests to have the fees. I'm sorry, Kamicha, I don't mean to put you through all this, but some nonprofits, have a usage in mind where they charge the public for entry fees, or they use it as a fundraiser. And then we had a discussion as to whether or not that's what we wanted to do. So I believe the consensus, as our city attorney and our city manager said, was to leave it the way it is for now. But we have completed those studies, and if the council's interested, Dennis, I'm sure that we could put together a spreadsheet and let you know. I know Dade County, they don't waive any fees. They don't waive any fees. And again, that's more or less what we're finding across the board. So if that's the way that this council wants to go, then a majority vote would be the way that we would decide to do business. But if we still want to be able to waive fees, then you have to make it on a one come by, whoever comes in and ask, and then if, like Richard said, public purpose, public use. Mr. Shelley said it as well, it has to fit within, I think you used the words, your box, to decide whether or not you felt that it was a need that needed to be provided. So I just wanted to give you a brief summation of what's been going on.
Okay. And how long are they asking to waive the fees? Is it for the remaining of the calendar year, or?
You're talking about week here?
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't want to answer that.
It's Councilman Williams. It's from March 2015 to December 2015, sir.
1 year.
Okay. And how much is it?
$500, sir.
Each time they rent, or total?
Total, sir.
All right, thank you, Mayor.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, just more generally on the global health discussion, I guess, of fee waivers. I wasn't here for the last meeting when we had a little bit of the discussion, so I'll weigh in a little bit now. But I've spoken with Dennis a couple times, and that was my understanding, is that no other municipality or the county has any type of fee waiver policy or program, that essentially They apply the fees equally across the board. They establish the schedule. If you're a profit, not profit, there may be different schedules, but that is the rules. There is no waiver. There is nothing. You follow the rules, and I'm okay with that. I mean, to me, it's fair. That for me, it's always been the issue of fairness, because you have one group that comes up and asks to waive fees, and there is no set criteria. So, as I said, I had in my own head, I'm trying to keep my own criteria, my own procedures, so that I'm fair to everybody when they ask the question, and I don't go off tangent, for one or the other. Because every cause is good, and so you feel bad as a policymaker. You feel bad when you have to say no to some of these people that are requesting the money, because every cause is a good cause. And so it's just easier when we have some rules, so that we don't always have to, weigh one against the other. And so that was always my intention. So I'm perfectly okay with the no fee policy, or coming up with whatever the fees are, and then the policy is no waivers, and that way it's applied fairly across the board. Because the other option is too that the other way of doing it is you have to, if you waive for one, you should waive for all. And then the problem becomes that, that there could be a huge exposure. I don't remember what we paid last year or waived in fees, but it was what, $40,000 or?
Yes, around that.
Yeah,
for,
so,
for 2 years, yes.
And that's a lot of revenue loss to the city, and we have to, at some point in time, maintain them. There's a deferred maintenance cost here to all of our facilities, and so we give away $40,000 every single year or more. It could turn into a lot more as people realize that this is an opportunity for them, and it has. And the next thing you know, we've got budget problems. So, I mean, that's kind of the way I've weighed in on it, and I've said my piece, so thank you.
But the point was to try to find some way to cap our donations back, if you want to call it. We're willing to put so much back into the community in some sort of a fee waiver, and then once that's gone, because you still have to maintain those facilities, you have to repair those facilities get worn down. So at some point in time, they have to be refurbished. So at some point in time, Peter has to be paid, So that's the only thing is, and I know we tried and it got a little complicated and difficult. I mean, if it's as simple as asking the council, do they want to have no fee waiver or standard policy? I mean, standard what we're doing right now, that may be the option that we go with. I know we talked about having each council person basically have a credit number, and that would translate into a dollar value to a fee waiver, but then that was very complicated. And so, everybody's struggling to try to find a way to cap this and to limit how much is given back to the community. We looked at just not-for-profits. There may be others that are just as good that may fall into the category. So I think we're still all struggling. Ms. Wallman and then Mr. Williams.
Mayor, I think you said pretty much what I was going to say, and that was that the credits that we talked about giving each council person, and that scenario, Dennis and I played that over and over and over, role played that back and forth, and let's say Ms. Faircloth wanted to say, okay, I'll give a third of that, and Mr. Williams a third, and maybe Mr. Shelley a third, and then you've got the bookkeeping, as to who gave what, and I mean, it was a nightmare, just a nightmare. So with all due respect, I don't think that's going to work. But then we talked about putting X amount of dollars in each council person's budget to sponsor nonprofits or people that you felt that had a public purpose to serve the people. That's a possibility. I don't know how that would fly with the rest of the council, but I lean with Mr. Shelley that, for so long we have given and given and given. I don't think that we should have I don't think we should have the same fee structure for a nonprofit as we do a regular, bridal party or whatever. I think it can be a nominal fee, but it would be a set fee so that these people didn't have to come forward every single time. And I feel sorry for people who have to come up here and ask us to waive their fees. But if we could do a very nominal fee, say $100, whatever, $50, whatever it is, for nonprofits, and then have a set structure, but that way it would be across the board, and it wouldn't be for anybody to have to make a decision. That would be my suggestion as chairwoman of this committee. So,
Mr. Williams?
Yeah. I met with two different companies today, and both of them were nonprofit, and the main agenda that they have was to get the FICO Williams building, to waive the fees. So the persons who I'm meeting with, most of their objectives are that they're having some kind of fundraiser for autism within the area, or they're trying to do something within the community, the nonprofits, the 501c3s, And so, two organizations met with me today just to see how they can get the FICO Williams building. So at some point in time, we have to make a decision on what we're going to allow for for these fees to be waived. It's just a lot that I think we have to grapple with as policymakers. Because next week I'm going to be bringing 2 items to waive fees. And if you don't, and if nobody, they say no to me, I'm going to say why. What makes my organizations different than the one we just said yes to? So if there has to be some type of policy that has to be in place, because how do you tell individuals no? How do you tell them your organization is not any better than the other one, or they don't have the same intent or purpose? They all, from what I've seen, have public purpose. But so I would like Sister Woman, that you come back with whatever other recommendations, Councilwoman. I call you sister, but come back with other recommendations so that we can kind of streamline this and not have to go through all of this every time we have a meeting. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Ms. Wallman?
Thank you for your kind words, Councilman. I would be happy to do that. It's just last time I came back, and you weren't here that night, but last time I came back, it was all over the place, But is it all right for me to ask Richard if it's the consensus of the council to come back with a nominal fee and then to have a little brief discussion as to the $50, $100. But I'd like, since Ms. Kamichi Driver's up there, that we just go ahead and vote on her so that she can, I feel bad you standing up there through this discussion. So I'll make a motion that we waive the fees for We Care.
Second.
There's a second. All in favor?
Aye.
You might be the last one. You might be the last one.
And I respect that.
Thank you. But if I could just have a discussion, is $50 agreeable, or does that sound reasonable for nonprofits who serve a public purpose?
Let me ask you a question. What is the administrative process, if any, to making sure, clarifying that they're not profit, validating?
We check.
Right. So is $50 enough for us to cover that? If that's not enough, then $75. But I agree with the flow of the conversation here. Let's just do a simple one fee fits all, if you want to call it. If you fit the criteria, this is what it is, and it takes the politics and it takes the pressure off of us getting backed into this corner all the time.
And Mayor, if I may, the fee would be low enough that as councilperson, we could opt to cover that fee if it was a special project for one of our committees or something that we've been working with. I mean, so that would give us that flexibility, but we just need to come up with a number, and I really would appreciate it if you would let me know what that magic number is, and then keep the fee the same for anybody other than a nonprofit or a not-for-profit.
Richard?
It really can't, so are you suggesting that there's a fee for profit that's fixed? Okay, because the way that fees have to be set is they can't be arbitrary.
Oh.
So what you have to do is, the idea of these fees, it's not a tax. What you're trying to do is recover the cost to the city of providing this service. So I'm sure Dennis has some sort of a spreadsheet where it costs, 2 or 3 workers to come out and line the field, or whatever they do. So that's fine for them. And then basically you're just setting a fee less than that for not-for-profits, and that's it. And then,
if I can interrupt, though, I think you need to think through the implications of that, in that if whatever dollar you set for nonprofits, and then the calendar fills up with all these nonprofit events, if that doesn't cover the cost of staffing costs for these, electricity, whatever, then that is incorporated in your general fund budget, and you're subsidizing those events. As long as you understand, in essence, you're shifting the cost from the nonprofits to the general fund taxpayer. So that's
Right, the difference between the fee that you set for the for-profits, which has got to be set based upon the services that we're providing, and what you're charging for the nonprofits is basically the city incurring the fees for the nonprofits.
once you set a blanket thing like that, I think you can anticipate more volume of nonprofits. So
Mayor,
as long as you understand, somebody's going to have to pay for that one way or the other.
if I still have the floor, Mayor.
Yes.
I can see where that would be a real problem, and this is why I wanted the discussion to happen. Perhaps instead of dealing with dollar amounts, I think before we talked about $2,500 for each council person, perhaps each council person could have a set number of nonprofits that they can bring forward. Would that be possible? Because that's a lot less bookkeeping.
Again, what criteria are you going to use to determine who gets on the list and who doesn't get on the list?
But that would be up to each council person. They would have, I'm just throwing a number out there, maybe they'd have 5 to 10 nonprofits that they could use per year, and then that would be it. Pardon me?
Is it possible
I'm
that we're
trying to
working
find it.
too hard to fix a problem that maybe is not as big of a problem as you all may think? We do bring a few of these a month, but in the totality of the things, most of them you agree with. There's a handful that you don't. I mean, you may be opening up Pandora's box by even, how many have you rejected over the year? I mean, I can't think of many.
Well, it's hard to reject when you have people looking at you when you've already done
But if you
for
can't,
one
if
and
you
can't do
can't
for
reject
another.
them now, how you going to reject them? At some point, somebody's going to, if you're going to have a cut, somebody's going to get rejected, or you're going to approve them all.
If there's not some limitation on it, I would be concerned that these places will fill up
I
every
agree.
single day, every single weekend. Anybody who's paid for a venue anyplace else will come to the city facilities and say, I'll just pay my $75 or whatever it is, and then I'm done. So I think that if you're going to think about something like that, then there's got to be some sort of limitation on how many.
Let me get the Vice Mayor. Are you okay with the Vice Mayor?
Of course,
Okay,
I
Vice
want
Mayor?
input.
Go ahead.
That's what I really want.
I mean, I agree with what you guys are saying. I do think, though, that to keep the current system in place is not a choice, I mean, to me, because this has been something that we have struggled with, and it puts us in very awkward and uncomfortable positions every single meeting, because maybe there's times we wanted to vote against something or no, but we didn't, because you have all of the, you want these organizations to do well, but at the same time, at some point, enough's enough. And so I think that to make us have to go through that every single time is something that we're exhausted about and we're tired of dealing with. So I think we have to come up with some sort of solution that we can apply fairly across the board. So I like the idea of having a split fee structure. We have our normal profit fee already established based on cost. And so really it's just a matter of figuring out what amount do we want to charge our not-for-profits. And then the concern becomes then, well, you're right, will we fill up this place with not-for-profits so that's all we deal with? So I think that's, again, where we can come up with a structured amount, a set number, first come, first serve, quarterly. Don't do it annually because, each people, and so you know how much you're going to deal with. You've got a certain number of not-for-profit slots available during the month of January through May or March or whatever the time frame is at a certain price. And it's there. You've got cutoffs because you have to make it so there are none of these arbitrary decisions or you're not really accomplishing anything.
And the flip side to that, if I can, is that we're creating more bureaucracy over a problem that, for the most part, is one of feeling uncomfortable of saying no to a group that's sitting out in the audience, and at some point, the likelihood is somebody's going to say no, and assuming you have X number of slots, and then a very, very good cause comes, there's nothing that prevents them from saying, we'd like to come to your meeting and ask you for the waiver. And you're going to be right back to where you are, because who's going to say no to the disabled veterans?
But at least there's rules. See, the problem we have now is there are no rules at all. I mean, it's just a free-for-all. And so we have nothing to base our decisions on except what I personally think and he personally thinks and she personally thinks, and we all think differently, and so it ends up being a real mess, and we don't want to sit here and debate those issues for an hour and a half.
But then how does the limitation on slots answer the question of what's the rule of who gets and who doesn't get?
It's first come, first serve. You know when the application date is to apply for a spot. It's the first week of the quarter. And so if you're a not-for-profit and you know you have an event, Rotary has an event the same time every year. All of these not-for-profits have events the same time every year. And that week, it's a first come, first serve type scenario. I mean, a lot of banquet halls you go to, it's, you apply, and if someone's got it ahead of you, you missed it, and you have to do it again later. I mean, but at least there's rules. It's a flat set of rules.
Well, the rule is first come, first serve.
Right.
Well, that's one opinion.
But
Mr.
there's other options.
Mr. Burgess, and then Ms. Fairclough.
Thank you. Mr. Driver, you walked away before I got queued up here. But in your accounting for the year, do you budget an item like this, or do other nonprofits have a budget for rental of space and stuff like that, and then you hope that you're going to get it, the fees waived, or is this something that you don't even consider when you're doing your budget for the year?
It is an item that nonprofits can put in their budgets. As for We Care, we put it in the budget, but we didn't receive the funding to cover it. So that's why I'm before you guys asking for the fee waiver. If we had the funding, I would not even, ask. I don't have a problem paying.
And that's the point I'm trying to think, is I think a lot of these people put it in their budgets and then come here asking for the waiver. So I think we need to look at that and take that into consideration. And then I caution us, because when that theater is open, if you think we have people standing at this podium now, if we don't have something in place that we start with and require people to pay money, when that theater opens, we're going to be in serious trouble, because that theater's costs are going to be astronomically higher than what we pay for a Michael Williams or the Bill Dickinson Community Center or the park or whatever it is out there, and people are going to flood to that place. So we need to act sooner than later, but I think we also need to charge, because it's like the manager said, if they don't pay, and I understand a lot of them are giving our citizen services. Mr. Sullivan pays, I pay as a taxpayer, you pay, everybody else pays, but the people that come here. Even the people that are going there are already paying. They just don't know it, because it comes out of our general fund. So I think there needs to be a fee, whether it be a nominal fee or whatever, at least to cover our administrative cost and whatever our electricity cost and things like that are for the facility. And that's my opinion, because I think a lot of these people that come before us have built it into their budgets for the year, and then they come here hoping to save on it. And I agree. If I could ask for it and going to get it for free, I'm going to go ask too. But it's not free to us, because the city still pays. So, and I'll leave it at that. But I do caution us, if we don't get something soon, when that theater opens, we're going to be in serious trouble here in this city.
Mayor?
Agreed.
Mr. Mayor?
Let me get Ms. Fairclough, and then I'll grab you there. Ms. Fairclough?
Yes, thank you. Councilman Burgess, you bring up a good point. It's a lot to consider and hash out, and I would just like to add that I agree that we should charge a nominal fee, but if the event occurs after 5 or on the weekends, I think it should be more, because we have to pay staff overtime after 5 and on the weekends to man a free event. So that is something to consider also for those events that are occurring after 5 and on the weekends.
Mr. Manager? Mr. Manager?
Mayor, I have one idea that I think all of you will hate collectively, but I'd like to throw it on the table just for your consideration. Most every fee in government, and we could probably get a listing for you, the state law prohibits elected bodies from waiving for this exact reason. And the trouble you're having with this is the reason why that's not allowed, because it's a slippery slope. And so one idea would be to require everybody to pay fees, no waiver of fees at all, and develop some sort of nonprofit grant a budget item that would be similar to what you have for your CRA grant opportunities, which is it's a pool of money. People can go to the nonprofit board and make their pitch and do their thing. And then if they need $500 for city fees, then that'll be one of the grants that's given out. But at least it's taken out of your arena. You don't have to deal with it. But the general rule, and you can tell everybody, we're not allowed, you can pass an ordinance that says there should be no fee waivers. You don't have any more waivers. People come to you and say, we're not allowed to waive fees, but what we can do is, because there's an ordinance that says you can't waive fees, but what you can do is each year you can apply with the nonprofit committee for a small grant for your whatever grant monies you need to pay for your fees. And then this way you just take it out of the equation, and I know it's a tough thing to swallow, but long term, I think it's your easiest solution.
That's exactly what we had to do years ago. And we put into a pot X number of dollars. And people applied, and when those dollars were gone, the program was over. And you had an independent review board, and they did an analysis, and there was a rating process. If they weren't for profit, first thing they did is go off to the side. And then the list continued, and then those recommendations came forward to the council. Because again, we found ourselves in the same situation, only we were at the edge of bankruptcy. So in order to control the giveaways, we established a process.
Absent an ordinance, if you have an ordinance in place, then you can just tell everybody that you're not allowed to waive the fees, but we have a grant process, and then you can have that system handled by your nonprofit group.
Okay, Ms. Waldman, Ms. Faircloth, and then Mr. Williams.
I don't know why you thought we might hate it. I can only speak for myself, but I like it because we went through this before a special event committee, and people would come forth to the board, similar to our CRA board that we have now, and they would plead their case, and then the money would be distributed that way. And that included parades. I mean, at that time, it included everything because we had no money in the city. Ms. Faircloth brings up an excellent, idea and suggestion about the overtime. I didn't think about that. And most events are in the evening or the weekend, so that's very important. I agree with Mr. Burgess completely. I mean, I personally don't think we should waive any fees for the Seminole Theater because you're going to, we don't even know what we're going to have there. We're going to have a marketing director, an administrator, janitorial services. I mean, there were ticket tellers, whatever you call it, people take tickets. I mean, there's going to be a lot of staff there. So to me, that facility should not be waived at all. That's just my personal opinion, and we'll get to that, I guess. But if you tell me to move forward with Dennis and the manager bring forth something like that, be happy to do it. I just think that we needed this discussion because it's a waste of time for me to do it, and then I don't mind doing it, but it's a waste of time to you too to sit and listen to it, and then nobody can agree. Thank you, Mayor.
Ms. Faircloth?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. George, I actually think that's a good idea, and I'll tell you why. Because it depoliticizes the process. It takes the politics out, away from us, and gives it to a fair and impartial group of individuals to discuss. However, if you recommend that the nonprofit board view these particular grants, that board only meets for a small amount of time throughout the year. They don't meet monthly like our regular boards meet. So if we would like to go into that direction, then we will need that board to meet more consistently as opposed to that small window of when they meet to review those nonprofit grants.
Mr. Williams?
Yes, thank you. And I think Councilwoman Waldman brought it up. The name of it was a Special Events Committee, and it was $20,000 in the pot. And then I think Councilman Shelley, your wife, chaired it, if I'm not mistaken, back then. Before your wife, she wasn't your wife then. You think you were engaged at the time. But that was back in 2008, 2007, 2008 maybe. And I served on that board. So that's the way we operated, is that they would submit their application. and it was a special events committee. And I think it was 7 members on that board, and we evaluated each organization, and then we decided, how much money we were going to allot them for that. So if that means fees need to be waived or what have you, then that's what that particular board was for. So I think you probably just need to institute that committee again, the special events committee. The only thing I would add, if we're going that route, that each council person has a person that they can appoint to that committee.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I like that idea. I mean, that was what we did with the CRA. That was one reason why I had the CRA not-for-profit forum, because we had this exact same conversation about handing out grants for the CRA and how politicized it was, and it was friends of friends of friends. And we did that to kind of give us the space so that it would run the course fairly. So I think that's a great way of handling this issue as well. So as long as we can find enough volunteers to serve on the board, I think that's great. So. And I assume that the way the ordinance would read is that, the board's decision would be a binding decision, a final decision, versus a recommendation that comes back to us, and then we end up dealing with this on the backside. So that's the only thing you'd have to clarify on that issue. But other than that, I think it's a great idea.
Before it was still the final opinion of the council. It wasn't binding on the board. It was in essence codified at the council level as to that waiver. So, the final decision still needs to be here. It's going to be a little politics involved, but not nearly the politics involved if every individual week we get another reoccurring question from the community. So, is that all, Vice Mayor? Ms. Wallman, you had something?
I was just going to say that if that's the direction of the council, I'd be happy to work with Dennis and Dennis Maytan, our Director of Parks and Recs, and our City Manager's Office to bring forth your committee assignments, because I agree, Mr. Williams, I think each person should have a representative on that board, and I'd like to ask Mayor if that's what you want me to do.
I think the consensus is fairly clear. Everybody wants to go in that direction from the conversation.
I like
it. The question that we need to figure out is there's got to be a grace period. As Mr. Williams said, he's got some pending questions that probably are going to need to be answered prior to us getting all this in place. So we've got to realize there's going to be a few questions that we're still going to have to answer while we're setting this up. So I don't know what that'll be, but at some point in time, something will come back. But in the meantime, we're going to have to deal with these questions as transition.
If I may answer, I think that, Mr. Williams, you just said you had two organizations, and I don't think they should be punished in any way because, we're in the process of putting this together. But I think we could do this by the March Cal. Don't you think we could put it together?
Let me just, I was just talking with Dennis there, and I was asking him, because this is all very familiar, right? We went through this.
Yes,
We've done
And I was asking Dennis what happened, because we had the committee, and basically the way the committee worked was that for any grant, any fee waivers of parks and recreation fees, the following procedure would apply. There's established a citizens advisory committee consisting of 7 members, one appointed by each council member, which is what Councilman Williams was saying. That the Citizens Advisory Committee, Special Events Committee shall then elect a chairman. The Special Events Committee shall review all requests for funds from the special events budget for each fiscal year, shall rate and request on a point system, then shall make a recommendation for the disbursement of funds from the special events budget, and bring said recommendation to the City Council for approval at a regularly scheduled meeting. Once the special events budget is fully committed, all future requests in that fiscal year shall be denied, and no appeals shall be allowed to the City Council. These special events shall include parades and other events the city has been asked to fund or waive fees for in the past. The advisory committee, once appointed, shall set deadlines, blah, blah, blah. This is pretty much what you're talking about, right?
That's exactly what we're talking about.
But there is a distinction, and that is that some of these that come before you, it's a waiver for a fee for meetings, for example.
For what?
Well, we just need to modify this a little bit and sort of bring it up to date.
And also, Richard, those are waivers, and so theoretically...
Waivers and grants.
But theoretically, though, that they can come back and say, we'd like the council to consider an additional waiver.
It says that you can't Just, yeah. Well, anyway, I understand what you're saying, but I think what happened was just over time, I don't really know what happened. Dennis doesn't really know what happened. It just sort of went away. The committee just sort of went away. But is that, I mean, I'll work on this, on some of the issues you brought up, but is that sort of what
The
you're talking
guidelines are there. I mean, I think everybody's listening, everybody's saying basically the same thing. The guidelines are there. If they need to be tweaked slightly
Yeah.
to do some adjusting, but that's really kind of where I think everybody's trying to go, is to get a process in place, and that's absolutely a
I'm
process.
thinking we have pretty much have the basis for a process.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I think, Richard, the only thing I can tell you is that when I first got here, not only wasn't that happening, but staff was just administrating,
Right.
waiving at whatever request they got from council people. And so we then started saying everything, we told the staff that everything has to come to the council, and that is the reason why all this stuff has started to come. But there was not that process being implemented. It was just being done administratively by staff.
okay, well, this is the new homestead, and we'll just sort of update this. You and I will talk about it.
Okay.
There's certain sections, protections that we need to put in here,
You're-
and we'll
you're-
bring it for you as a draft.
Right, let every council person know what section that is so they can
Yeah,
review it
it's
themselves.
section 20-31.
I'll remember that.
Write it down.
Could somebody email?
Ms. Waldman and then Mr. Burgess.
Well, I just wanted to say that I remember this, and it worked beautifully, and government got in the way of why we don't have it anymore. And I encourage all of you to go back to it, and I believe, didn't I appoint you, Mr. Williams, to that committee? And I can tell you that, I mean, I'd like to see the parades under it. I'd like to see all of that taken away from us, so that we have that policy in place. And I liked that policy, and I'd like to bring it back, so.
I think we're all on the same page. Is that all, Ms. Waldman?
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Burgess?
Thank you, Mayor. I would just make a suggestion when we're looking at this, that we determine an amount of money, and we either divide that up for bi-monthly, or a quarterly distribution, because obviously, somebody that shows up in November may not have had an event planned in the January process, and therefore they'd be shut out
Right.
and not be able to do their thing. So I would just, as we look at this, either a bi-monthly or a quarterly
And that-
meeting, and the deadline is the deadline, so.
And that was a problem before, you're absolutely correct. You know, we started the program, and then somebody had an unforeseen something come along, and there was no mechanism for them to get in. So I agree, Richard, if you could, slice that pie in 3 or 4 different directions, so we can, somebody can come in the middle year but still be eligible for. I think that's a great point, Mr. Burgess. Mr. Burgess, do I call you Mr. President, or do I call you Mr. Burgess? I'm not really sure. Okay. We got the president of the Miami-Dade League sitting here, so we got a big gun in the room. Anything else, Mr. Burgess, Mr. President? Okay. Anybody else, any comments? What do we need on this? We've passed the waiver of fee for Comitry. You're done?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
May I say something, please?
Yes, please.
Just wanted to say that once you have your fee schedule in place, I really think it's going to be, for the nonprofits that are fiscally responsible, they will put that in their budget and plan accordingly if they know about it, and then, they will definitely do it. The challenge that most of us faced was this charging of using the FICO Williams facility came mid-year, after we had already put budgets in place and couldn't go back and change, and we were accustomed to not having to pay for use of the facility, or to pay a nominal fee for use of the facility. So that where most of us ran into budgetary constraints is because we were already in our fiscal year, and then we were being told that we needed to charge. But putting a procedure and policy in place with the fee, I think that most of the nonprofits, like I said, the ones that are fiscally responsible, will be able to budget it, and you won't have this many requests.
Thank you. Tab 7's been removed. Any final discussions from the council? Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion. Second? All in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.